Welcome to Hashknife Hangouts. I'm Calen Carpenter. With me is my partner, co-host, and father, Brandon. Also joining us today is my beautiful and wonderful mother, Lisa. And before we get started, those of you on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. Facebook, like, comment, share. Find us on InstaG at hashknife.ranch.mt, all lowercase. And of course, on all platforms, spread the word to your friends. And now to the opening notes. Tis the season for branding. Yesterday, the Hashknife Ranch completed the annual branding event, which everybody enjoys. Some ranches, it takes several days to several weeks, depending on the amount of animals they have, the size of the operation, and the locations of all their animals. For us, it's a one-time, one-stop event that seems simple at first look, but it has a ton of background preparation and coordination even before we execute on the day of. So today, Dad, Mom, and I will look through some videos. We already looked at some compiled stuff before we started, and that was all recorded yesterday. And then we'll kind of break them down, explain the process for anybody that's unfamiliar, and then show kind of like how everything normally is conducted. First, I will break down the overall day of traditional process. So kind of here's what it starts with. We gather the cows and we bring them in. For those of you asking, we do typically use horse, but you'll see in there that Braden does use the ATV a little bit to help push. And then, of course, Mom was in the side-by-side pulling them, so to speak, using cow cake. So kind of like drawing them in and baiting them, in a sense, to the corrals. Number two, we sort the animals and separate the cows from the calves. And then we move on to the next step, which is you push the calves through the chutes, and then you start doing the branding, the tagging, the immunization. And then if any bull calves have not already been banded, that's when we will band. That's our new and improved version of castration, and it's significantly more clean, a little bit easier on the bodies, less stressful, and so we do that. Moving on to the next step, we let the cows and the calves mother up, and then we finish the day with releasing the animals to the pasture. And then sometimes you'll push them to the summer pasture that day, but typically let them kind of settle down after that day because it's a pretty stressful event as it is. And then finally, to end the day, you sit around and eat and drink until your heart's content. But before any of that happens, there's the timing with calving, because calving rolls right into branding time. Then you got to coordinate some help because you can't just do it yourself. Then you get some immunizations prepped and purchased because that has to get done beforehand. You do all the paperwork and printing stuff off so you can record the day of. And then you gather the animals and then, of course, execute, which is what we just talked about. And for us, we also threw a little bit of filming in there, thanks to Mom this year. What comes in addition to all that I just broke down? Well, you get some stress. You get to teach others and some newcomers because sometimes people have different habits. And if you have anybody from a different outfit, typically they have ways of doing their thing. We have ways of doing ours. So if you're at somebody's outfit, you do things their way, not your way. Lots of communication because this is a team sport. And then finally, the placement of the brands, one of the biggest things, and hopefully we'll get to show some video of it if we get some releases and stuff like that. But Braden did a great job. I saw a bunch of the video of him doing it, and that's the thing. The placement of the brands, know where they go. Use hot irons because if they're not hot, it tends to be a harder issue and it lasts longer than it needs to. And then have somebody like Braden or Dad that knows how to use those brands, apply them properly, because that makes things so much easier. So with that, I'll turn it over to the parents.
Can I talk or
I'll let
boss?
you talk.
Okay. Let's hear it from your perspective. Actually, I like to hear that. Let's
Okay.
start with the
Can you tell they've been married for 20
weeks
years?
out. Pardon me.
I said, and can you tell they've been married for 20 years? Because Dad's like, I
God.
like your perspective better.
Almost 30.
It's just his way to butter me up. He wants something.
Butter.
Yep.
Butter. So what do you want me to tell you?
Well, I guess about when do we really start thinking about branding?
The day after we branded?
No. You start thinking about branding.
No, I mean
weeks
for the
ago.
next year.
Oh, for the okay, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
that's not. Yeah,
that's
how
not
can we do things
untrue.
better?
Yeah.
There's a lot of critique. We should have done this, or we
Yeah.
could have done that, or let's not have that person come back. I mean, that's only happened like
Once.
Yeah.
Once.
you know
There,
because
yeah, a young person that just wasn't very nice to the animals,
Mhm.
so we didn't ask.
mhm.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
it wasn't about being not nice. It was a matter of
think,
that person's got a mean streak in them.
yeah, I had a
and-
rope and
And they use every excuse they can to,
yeah,
apply pain to something. It's like,
that's not the
you go be a
purpose.
sociopath somewhere else.
Yeah.
So
We're trying to make this quick and as painless as possible, as stressless as possible on the little critters. They're already stressed out because mama's across the fence.
right.
You know.
Well, and but that's a really good point about, kind of debriefing. Okay, what went right? What went wrong? Should we have done this?
How sore am I? How tired am I?
Yeah.
Do I really want to do this again?
And why are we doing this?
Oh,
But I'm thinking about branding about when we get about
halfway through the calves.
about
Yeah.
halfway through calving season.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, then I'm thinking, okay, when are we going
When
to
are we
finish
going to
up
do it? Because that's the
Yeah.
big thing, is the date is the biggest issue,
for us?
because it's got to be the right weather conditions. Last weekend we could have done it and it was 80. It was gorgeous. But
Well, hot.
that's really
We had-
too hot, because those little buggers get so stressed out and they are going to get more dehydrated as the day progresses. So that's not so good.
And we didn't have the last calf.
And the last calf had just been born, and that you got to give people enough lead time that they can say, oh yeah, I'm available or not, right? And you can't be too wet or cold, although we pushed the limits this year. And I kept thinking, we're not gonna be able to do this, we're not gonna be able to do this because of the weather. And Dad kept saying, no, no, we're gonna have a window. And I'm thinking, okay, fine, a window, but I don't want to do this. And next weekend is going to be perfect. But again, you can get weather coming in. So you kind of have to, if you have the window, and even though it was a little chilly, you got to go with it.
I think the overnight low was 29.
Something like that, 29, 30.
We had some mix of snow and rain,
Yeah.
and there was freezing rain on everything, or
Yeah.
frozen rain. On
Yeah,
everything, and there was
all
a
the
little bit of snow
corrals
here and there.
were frozen down, and
So my
Well-
whole issue was, I just need that hide and that hair to be dry enough that when you hit an iron, it doesn't steam and cause a big old steam burn. That's not what you want. And so,
Yeah.
and we were in a good condition to do that. I mean, we just hit that window. It worked out right. And you're watching the weather for easily a week in advance, maybe 2 weeks, because really a
At
10-day
least two.
outlook at least, because you're trying to get people lined up. If, hey, can you make it? We'll feed you.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too that I was thinking is, you guys are both talking about lead time, excuse me, lead time, but that's a big thing, especially, Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, because wherever you go, even if it's a friend or for us family that helped this year, the furthest one away is 2.5, 3 hours at
Yeah.
least. So
Yeah.
that's 3 hours travel time there, 3 hours travel time back on the day of. And you've got to, they've got to kind of prep for that, because it's not just they can go down the road and they're there. Yep, we're here to
Right.
help. You gotta
right.
you gotta kind of plan for that trip.
Well, we have one good friend that he lives in southern Colorado, and he
Yeah.
is always willing. He says, "You just tell me," and he
Yeah.
has made this trip several times.
Yep.
And
So that's
it's like,
easy, a full day trip for me. I've done
Oh.
it going to San Antonio. It's like 12
Yeah.
hours.
that's a super commitment. You feel you really don't want to ask, because it's
Right.
like, that is a huge thing to ask somebody, and so it's like, God, I don't know. And then on a maybe that it's not going to work or
Right.
not. That's the other issue. It's like,
Yeah.
we literally had probably a 12-hour window.
hmm
And so
Yeah,
it
because
worked out.
it's drizzling rain here now. So
Yeah.
It would have
Right.
been pretty nasty if it would have come in a little earlier.
Well, yeah, and you just stop. You just don't, because you don't want to put a bad brand on them. You don't want to cause a larger injury. I mean, and really you're injuring these animals with a light burn. It's
Yeah.
like between the first, you're not blistering. It's not a second-degree burn, but you're just burning them enough
it hurts.
to, you burn the hair, and then it just enough on the hide that it'll cause a scar that disrupts the hair pattern, and it's all you're after. When you throw that on there, if that hide's wet, and all of a sudden you throw a big heavy iron on that steam, and it just burns the hide in a big blotch. I mean, that's not what you want. So you just don't.
Mhm.
And you're not going to just bring them in and vaccinate them and then run them through again.
Right. Well,
just
it
to
causes
brand them.
undue stress. Yeah.
Right, you're stressed
Yeah.
them twice. So
Yeah.
it's you do it all when you can, as you can, and as quickly as you can, without causing any injuries or pain or large disruptions. So, that prepping for it, you get your vaccine purchased. I've had that purchased for what, 2-3 weeks
Yeah.
to make sure you can get it. Cause sometimes if you wait too long,
Yeah, shipping. If you're getting it through shipment.
yeah, everybody's doing the same thing. They're all branding, and we tend to brand a little bit later than everybody else because we calve a little later than everybody else.
And so we've had issues where we've gone around town and they don't have enough vaccine. Somebody has some, but it's not quite enough.
Mhm.
So that's why Dad tries to get it at least 2-3 weeks ahead to make sure we've got it for the day.
Because you can order it online, and there are some very reputable companies that will ship on overnight, and we've done it a couple times, and it is really a fantastic way to do it. I like to support the local stores. I want to do
Yeah.
business with them because I'll we'll spend a little bit more doing that, but it's about supporting your local people. So in a pinch, you'll buy it, and I've had it delivered, and it is, I mean, nice and cool. It is well packaged, well done, not frozen. I mean, they got their stuff together. So there is that option at the very least when you're 2-3 days out and still don't have any vaccine.
Yeah.
If that's the case.
And then you guys were talking about stress is a big one for us because we don't like to stress our calves or our cows, and we've seen people who do. That's part of the reason. Well, a couple of things. Like one, Dad was using the horse. Braden did push with the ATV. However, what you'll notice is the way in which he uses that ATV is significantly different from how other people normally use it.
Some people go up and bump the cows with the ATV.
They will. There's also they'll zip past them really fast and they'll rev the engine really hard to scare the cows, and that's not how we do it. Braden, he kind of comes up behind him, sneaks up behind him, and occasionally he'll honk at him. There's a little beep beep, but normally he just kind of gets close to him and kind of shoos him with his hand more than anything. And then of course Dad uses the horse, which is significantly less stress as well.
Yeah, but if you really watch and listen, and maybe you can pick this up on a clip, I don't know. Yeah. When we're riding past them and we use our voices and we holler at them, they will respond off your voice too, because you're kind of spooking them with your voice and just moving them, just hollering at them, and you do that a lot. Braden's over on a four-wheeler. I detest four-wheelers and I detest side-by-sides for working with cattle, but I'd rather have that. But it works as long as you don't move them too fast and too hard, and then you can do okay. But it's cold this morning. It's about 30 degrees, and these cows are really wanting to move. Everybody's a little bit humped up. You can see their backs are humpy. Horses even a little humpy, and they'll move quick. So it's short, small pasture. Won't take us long. We'll get them in the corral, and that's the whole point of moving them yesterday from the big pasture into this smaller one, in order to gather them up quick, not waste a lot of time, not overstress them, and then we can start the whole branding process. The day before,
I have the opposite problem on my end because the little buggers, they'll run in front of me just like calves do, cows, to stop them to feed. The big girls, run in front of the side-by-side to stop me to give them treats. And I was like, get out of my way. Come on. So I got my hand out the window, hitting the windshield like this, trying to make noise, saying, hey, move.
You don't have a horn in the side-by-side?
No.
Thank God.
I told him I needed one.
I don't need to be called with that like they would be.
I told him I need one. And
just get her like, the clown car, the beep, beep.
You know what?
Yeah, the little, yeah.
I might have one of those around here. I might have to do that.
Or on the other window, do the bicycle, the ding ding.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm on the other end where I'm trying not to hit them or get too close, and then they'll bump in front of me. And I had one of them kick me yesterday. I think she kicked the tire as she's going by, and I didn't touch her. She just it was cool, and she was kind of playing. And it's like, hey, I'm here, the big red thing. Don't do that. But yeah, so I have that problem while they're trying to, push.
The day before was tough when we moved from the larger pasture into this small calving pasture.
Do you want to know what my quote of the day was when we were done?
I'd love to hear it, Mom.
We will never move cows again, just the two of us. Never.
Well, I mean, you guys
He
had
said
me
that-
do it one time by myself for branding,
Said you
so I
did,
think
yeah.
I don't really have much
No.
sympathy. And I know Dad's
We're
done it
never
plenty of
moving
times.
cows again, the two of
Okay.
us.
All right, I'll help Dad. It'll be him and me.
And then I said, yeah, a good dog would have helped.
Oh, that about flipped me over the top. Oh, huh.
Yeah, because I'm sure you had 3 of them in the cab with you.
I said a good dog.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
not
tracking.
3 pets.
Yeah.
And
No,
they
a-
were
a good cow
traumatized.
dog.
They were traumatized because I would try and go. I was trying to go, one speed, and of course you can't when you're looking around and you're trying to get cows out from in front of you and not run over them.
And
And
then you
they
get the
were
pug underneath the
jerking.
accelerator.
Yeah, they were jerked all over the place, and they were looking at me like, "Mom, improve your driving skills." But yesterday was not, or Friday was not good.
Well,
for getting those cows in.
I'm training a horse, or tuning this horse for some people, and this horse is
I call him Flash because he's so fast.
he's,
Yeah, I've heard he's not.
the only
But-
thing he
He's
and
not.
Seabiscuit have in common is they will
Both like to sleep.
They sleep a
Sleep
lot.
off,
They just flat out on the ground.
And he's a nice horse. He's just not
He's
speedy.
funny. Oh yeah, he's
Yeah.
just slow, and
Yeah.
I think he was spoiled as a colt because of his color, and he's
Oh, he's
kind of,
gorgeous. Yeah.
so I think there's that. And then he just wants to do what he wants to do, and you make him do it, and he gets a little mad and pissy, and he continues to resist you. You know the type.
Yeah.
So you got that on top of that, because this is really good work for that horse.
Yeah.
But there's that risk reward of, okay, I'm going to get some reward out of working this horse, but the risk is if I lose these cows, if they go back and I lose them, now you've taught the cows that they don't have to go in a corral.
Right.
That's a bad thing. So
yeah, it teaches things for you train horses, but you also train cows in a sense too. And
Yeah.
if they start learning some tricks, it's not a good thing.
Right.
Definitely. So we got him in, got him all taken care
Well,
of, and
we're
everything's good.
not
though.
going to talk about that anymore.
Okay,
than that.
okay, go ahead.
Oh, what else happened?
So he says, I'm going to go out to the far side and I'm going to start pushing them this way. This is why we're not doing this again, the two of us, because he was on the far eastern, northeastern corner trying to push these cows that were very resistant to coming in.
Okay.
And we have a very large mass of cows to the northwest, quite a ways away from him and Flash. And I am coming up on top of the hill so they can all see me, trying to gain their trust and desire for treats. And I got a good bunch of them coming over to me, but I'm trying to wait till Dad's got some of them closer to me. And I probably went out there too soon because Flash just didn't get there that soon. And so I'm out there trying to draw them in. And the girls in the Northwest are not moving. I got a few of them to come. Most of them weren't moving.
Were
And
they just older and didn't want to come, or were they
no,
younger
it
and they
just
didn't
was
know
a
what
good
was
day
going on?
to stay where they were. They were content.
They're on some good grass and
And
some calves laying there.
so I ended up trying to draw them in, and I thought, okay. And Dad was kind of behind me, so I started pulling them in, and I kept slowing down and stopping and trying to get them to come to me with grain.
Yeah.
And then I lost half of them. I would say half of them decided they turned and went the other way. So I took who I could into the corrals, got them in the very uppermost corral, and closed them in. I fed them treats,
Yeah.
but then I had to go back out. I had to go back out twice after that. Finally, Dad was able to bring those others in, but it was like, you got to be kidding me. But it's because he couldn't be in two places at once.
Yeah.
It was just the size of the area.
Yeah.
But
they just split up on you, and it kind of
They
made for a
did.
bad situation.
When I went over there was probably 4 or 5 calves bedded down.
Yeah.
So they were doing what they're supposed to do. They bedded these calves down, and they left some babysitters, and they were not moving. That's what they do. That's
I know, but still.
Yeah, they didn't line out like she wanted.
Bad words came out of my mouth.
She lost her voice because she was
I
yelling at
did
the
a little
cows.
bit.
Well,
The ones trying to stop me and the ones that weren't coming with me.
yeah, I mean, I get that.
So anyway, that's the prep work.
And then we have to
then you
decide
said
what we're feeding people.
Well, okay,
And
yeah, go ahead. You're talking about like
so-
feeding them the meals and stuff that comes
so-
afterwards.
We were thinking nice weather, so we organized salads. Grandma made a big salad and I made a couple.
It's
And
crazy
then
that this is the one year you didn't make gumbo. That would have been perfect for a gumbo day.
I know, I know. And that's what I was thinking was, and Braden mentioned that. He said, well, we were thinking nice weather. That's why we decided on hamburger and brats.
Yeah.
And then I overcooked the hamburgers, so it was not a good meal afterwards, but
it was
it was
delicious,
okay.
honey.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Anyway, so we're not doing burgers and brats again unless there's a dedicated cook that, because that was it. I came in and your Aunt Temple got the barbecue all ready for me, but I hate to make her do the cooking. I mean, that
Yeah.
wasn't the plan. And
Yeah, it's not her responsibility to feed the crew.
exactly.
It's
Yeah.
that's the thing that people don't understand is when it's branding time, the people coming don't get paid, right?
Right.
Unless you're a really big outfit and you have people that you pay on a regular basis, like wranglers
Right.
and stuff. The vast majority do not. And so you have friends, family come and they are paid with a meal
A meal
and maybe a couple beers.
conversation. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And that's
Or
kind of
beers
that's
as
kind
long
of
as
how
you
it
want to
works.
stay.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, not doing burgers and brats again unless something changes different.
But then you also have to get the head catch in, right?
But
Yeah,
I had to get the head catch in, make sure all the curls are ready and
Well, I had to
set
do a repair on it, on
Oh.
the head on the head catch itself,
on the handle.
on the chute, because the handle was broken. I remember last year that I thought, oh, I'll fix this right away, and of course you get fencing, you got all kinds of other stuff going on.
I'm gonna put a big whiteboard in the barn. And we're just gonna make a list.
A to-do list, another one where she can point
I
her
think that's
finger
the best idea,
and
don't
get
you?
a sore finger telling me what to
I
do.
mean, there's a small
That's a good
whiteboard. There's a small whiteboard in the barn, and it's actually
hell.
pretty handy. I'm a fan of whiteboards, but that's also me.
Wow.
Anyhow,
Color coded, no less.
I did have
Yeah,
to repair
you
the
should see
handle
it.
on it, so it was, it's minimal, but it still
It still
takes a
takes
couple hours to
time.
work
Yeah.
out, time out, and
Yeah.
then put it in place and put panels in place, because
Yeah,
this is a chute for cattle, for the main
for
chute
cows,
coming
for full grown
cow.
cows. Yeah,
Yeah,
and you're
and
putting
so
little
I
ones
put it-
in.
yeah. So I put in a couple of panels inside of that, so it narrows it up so they don't turn around.
Right.
It just helps whoever's pushing them in there.
Yeah,
And
and trust
then-
me, it's helpful because if anybody's ever pushed a calf up a chute, they find a way to turn themselves completely backwards
And
somehow.
you can't imagine that they can,
They're
and
like
they
guppies.
do.
Yeah. And then when
Yeah.
you try to turn them back, suddenly they no longer become Gumby. They become stiff as a board, one might say.
True.
and you
It's
can't get them to
true.
flip around. So then you just have them go right back out to where they came,
Yeah.
and you turn them around and throw them back up the chute. It's just easier to have a tight chute. I'd rather be cramped in a chute and try and squeeze my way through it than to have to deal with a bunch of extra space. It's really
Yeah.
hard. Really hard.
And so you've got that you've got I
Making
had to
sure you
build a
got
set of
needles,
irons,
making sure
syringes.
the syringe guns are operational and good. And
Well, and
Make
they
sure
also, those guns have
good.
to be, because you guys ran into this, I think it was last year. You got to make sure that your immunization guns are dosed correctly, right? Because sometimes you might dial it a little too heavy and you'll end
Right.
up using up all your stuff too quick, or a little too light, and you've got a bunch of stuff left over and it's not really doing
Right.
anything for the calves.
or minimum, not
Yeah.
as well as it could do early on. They're still going to get a booster in the
Right.
fall,
Right.
but no, that's correct. And then those, sometimes the rings on there that you can change the dosage will get bumped. So that's one of the things that vaccinators do is they make sure that they check that every time. So,
Yeah.
which was a good learning. I mean,
Yeah.
we didn't realize those guns would move that easily one time.
Right.
So
yeah.
it worked out.
Well,
But,
and then some people might ask, well, why are you fixing the head catch? Why are you pushing if I throw a clip in here or something?
There, it's recording. What you call? I'm trapped.
Why do you have a calf table? Well, good question, and here's why I'll answer it. There's a couple of things. There's stress that comes with that, because there's different levels of stress when it comes to branding. There's 3 different types, and there's a study that was done. We've talked about this in depth several times. There was a study that was done, I think, by Kansas State or University of Kansas, one of the two. And they did a study that showed 3 different branding techniques. There's the calf table, which is what we use. There's wrangling, which is where you you put all the calves in one giant group, you rope them, and when you grab one that's unbranded, you get some younger guys about my age or younger, and they wrangle or wrestle the calves down, and they'll hold them down while everything's applied, just like they would be in the calf chute, except they're not in a table or anything like that. It's just two grown guys holding them down.
And that's more traditional because that's what
It
they
is.
did out on open range.
Right. And actually, what's more traditional than that is the roe deer, and that's the third option, which is where the cows and the calves are all kept together, and it's less stress on the calf because it's with mom. And you have a couple riders go in, they'll rope the calves, drag them out, they'll get wrestled and everything applied to them, and then they're immediately released, and they go right back into the roe deer, which is where mom's at, and they mother up. That happens to be the less stressful of the three. However, here's why we do a calf table. One, there's time. The amount of time that it takes is also stressful. So you want to try and make it go quickly. We use the calf table because it's efficient. We don't always have a bunch of guys that can wrestle. Like if you'll see in some clips, depending on releases and stuff like that, there's a lot of women there, and not all of them are able to help out. There were 4 men, and 2 of those men were regularly applying the branding irons. Normally, the owner is the one putting on the brands. That's it. Now, the owner in this case is Dad, because he's the manager of the ranch, and he also allowed Braden to brand as well, because Braden will take that over eventually in the upcoming years and decades. Now, the problem is when you take 2 of those 4 men out that would be the ones primarily doing the wrangling, it becomes very difficult to handle the animal. So it just becomes more efficient to use the calf table. So that's why we use the calf table. We don't always know who's going to be there, who's on first, what's on second, that kind of situation. So we just always use the calf table. We've had a lot of kids from high school who they're not familiar with what's going on or anything like that. So it's just easier for us to use the calf table every year after year. And we just pick it up with the tractor, typically take it over, set it down, put it in place, tie things down, and get it all set in stone. And then we use that for the duration of the branding event.
Right. It's easy to find ropers. Everybody wants to rope.
except for the Carpenter family. Whatever our issue is, we all hate ropes.
Not me. I love to rope.
All right. You can rope all day long.
Well, yeah.
It might take him all day long.
Well, there is that too. I get to rope once a year, twice a year, and it's like that's about it. So it's that's a perishable skill for sure. I have a dog that thinks she needs attention.
Oh, you mean the cow dog that's not a cow dog?
I bet she could be.
Yeah. Oh,
that is true. You do have 2 cow dogs.
Yeah.
Well, he's not. He's scared of cows.
Yeah.
Unless he's inside the fort or the side by side, and then he barks at him, and it's like, seriously, cub.
Yeah. Oh shoot. So getting everything set up, everything in place, everything, so you're not wasting people's time.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people are like, oh, I got something to do this afternoon. I can help you out in the morning. It's like, that's great.
And that happens sometimes. And that's not a big deal.
It's not a big deal. It's like, hey, we appreciate the help.
Yeah.
So you don't want to put them in a bind later on too, where you're slowed up. And I think last year, actually, Braden had to leave.
Yes, he did.
Had a fire or something.
Yes, he got called. That's right.
So we were midway through branding, and he's doing the branding.
Yeah.
And he goes, I got to go. And he's like, see ya. Have fun. Let us know you're safe.
Yeah.
And, I took over the branding part, but I mean, that kind of stuff can happen. And it's all right. It's just, you got to do what you got to do. So, but there's a lot of, it's just constant underlying, God, I hope the weather holds. God, I hope everything goes right. I hope we can get people. I hope we can get everything done in a efficient, safe, in the low stress.
Hope everything
else
works out smoothly, and you don't have a cow that decides she doesn't want to come in, and you have to chase her down.
Well, and if you've got some cows, you said, I think in the intro, that we do this as a one and done. Most of the time we can do that. There has been some years where, for whatever reason, the calving has gone late.
Yeah.
And you know what? You just don't brand the really little tiny guys.
Right.
You give them a little time. We'll catch them. We'll bring them in. And 2 of us
can do that.
We can do that. Even one, I could do that by myself. It would be a real way big pain, but we could do it.
Yeah.
This is where your mom would have to do the branding.
I just push the calf down into the chute, so you're dead. You think your
Well-
dad would let me put a brand on an
Of
animal?
course.
Yeah, I saw that. Of course.
No, it was this way.
No, it was
I'm not.
not.
I'm
I've
not
tried to
answering
get you
that
to
one.
brand. I've tried to get you to brand something, and you just don't want to because I don't want to hurt them. I don't want
Well,
to mess it up.
and they move.
Well, of course.
But even then, if it's like a super baby calf, like for example, it's been born that day or whatnot, what we will do is we'll throw them through the chute and we'll immunize them, tag them, do whatever we need to. We just won't brand because then
Right.
it becomes this massive like brand on the side of their ribs and stuff like
Or we'll
that.
use we've got some very small brands.
Yeah.
You could actually use the horse brands.
I was gonna say we've tossed around the idea of the horse brand a couple of times.
Yeah, I've done it and actually worked out very, very well.
Yeah.
So yesterday we had a couple smaller calves. They're just little. And I said to Braden, now be sure you use the little brand. And he didn't respond. And I said, yeah, be sure you got the little one. And he says, do you see what I have here? I was like, oh, okay. I guess we're good. So
Okay.
he was just kind of funny. He's just like, you know that look.
Yeah.
Do you see what I have?
He's not the most
He's a
easy to
great
have a discussion.
communicator.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Moving on. Anyway.
But you were one of the things you were talking about is you haven't got a chance because of the Army, college and the Army to do a lot of branding.
I've done a lot of number shoulder brands. I've not done a lot of the traditional brands that we have.
Right.
Oh,
Personally, because I like being in the chute. But
well, but there's a skill to that. And I was
There is.
I don't know, it's been 3, 4, 5 years ago. I was at a neighbor's place just down the road here, and they had just a small bunch of cows and calves that winter. And he says, hey, do you mind coming over? I said, sure. Well, they run them through, and they had a couple of them that had some different brands to put on based on who it was. And he says, I've never done a rib brand before because these were all hip brands. He goes, I've never done one. And he's asking everybody, he says, oh God, how are we going to do anybody? And I went, well, actually, yeah, I mean, that's what we mostly do. He goes, good, you're it. I want you to brand these stuff because everybody knows. I mean, it is a different feel depending on whatever landmarks you're looking at on those, the skeletal structure underneath that muscle and the muscle itself.
And some of the stuff too, I was noticing when I was editing the video, Braden's putting the rib brand on. I'm like, man, that's really far forward. And I'm like, he must have seen something different because when they're in the chute like that or the squeeze table, sometimes it looks like it's really far forward, like it's in their armpit. But if you're the guy branding, you have to do that because what ends up happening is when they stretch out, then you'll see the brand is in the correct location. It's just knowing, like you said, landmarks and where to push it and where to set it.
Yep.
But,
no, he did a great job. He's got a good feel for that. Of course, it's your brother. He can have
gifted at life.
absolutely no skill doing
Yeah.
anything. Look at it and go, oh, I can do that and excel at it. Just pisses me off.
One of the most aggravating things in my life to this date, growing up and seeing that is, oh, let me just pick up this one implement that I've never seen until 5 seconds ago. And oh, now I'm magically a professional. Okay. Thanks, Bray. You're making us all look
he's like
humans.
that though.
Okay.
It kills all of us.
Whatever.
So, yeah.
And he takes that for granted so much. Anyway, one of the things you said in your intro for the video that hopefully we'll be able to upload eventually is go over safety stuff and whatnot. What's some of the things that you told the crew about safety wise? Because I got some things in my head that I think of all the time, but what do you, what were the big ones?
Start with the vaccinators.
Yeah.
I mean, they can easily poke themselves.
Yep.
Easily poke themselves. And getting the shot of that stuff is.
I mean, you'd be good for a while, but I don't want it.
Yeah, it's kind of not designed for us. Yeah. I think it's not a very refined.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
Of vaccines. And it's, they're multiple, it's a broad spectrum, many different things that you're in there.
Who knows? Could be a cure for COVID.
You never know. Well,
never know. Anyway.
Yeah. Said some of the wormer was, but so I don't really take anything for granted that way because they've never done this before. And so what seems intuitive are like, oh yeah, no brainer. Well, they don't know. And these calves can kick even though it's the front leg and
they can get the legs out and those are sharp, those little hooves.
Wrists can get broke, fingers can certainly get broke.
Yeah.
Who has the iron, a hot iron in his hand is king.
Yep.
You stay away from them. If they're moving, you get out of their way. I mean,
Yep.
that's because they may not be able to see you. And usually, a guy with the irons is moving fast
Yeah.
because they got a hot iron.
They got to stay hot, because if they're
Gotta
not
stay
hot,
hot.
they stay on that skin for a long time, and it's just, one, it's not fair to the animal. Two, it tends to not apply well. So
Right.
like some of the clips, Braden was able, beautiful, applied the top brand, and he held it for all of about a second and a half. It was good. Left, put it in the pot, grabbed the second one, applied it for, again, another about second and a half. He pulled back, he goes, "It's good," and he walked away. And it was beautiful, done all in about the span of 7 seconds. I was like,
And
that
that's
is
how
exactly
most
what
of
you
them
want.
were. Yeah.
And the 7 seconds is the entire time, not the application to the hide was
Right.
maybe a second and a half.
Yeah, the 7
Yeah.
seconds is transition of grabbing the iron, apply, grabbing the other iron, apply, and going back to the pot, all of 7 seconds. The whole holding down of the irons themselves about 3.
Yep.
That's pretty
There's a
impressive.
couple of things, pushing a calf up a chute. I mean,
That's probably the biggest one, because there's a lot of force behind that leg if you're in the wrong spot of the
Well,
swing.
if you don't get right up on them, that was one thing in one of the
close
clips.
is better.
Yeah, one of the clips, there's some discussion about it. Is someone saying they're getting kicked, and like, yeah, you got to get up on them. So a lot of the times, especially me, when I'm done branding, because I'm the guy in the chute, because I like being in the chute, my entire front paints are covered
with poo.
In calf urine and poop, because if you're up on their hips, it keeps you from getting kicked. And if you do get kicked, it's more of a push than it is an actual strike.
It does
I always just push them with my hips. I mean, I just walk them up the chute typically.
Right.
Because that's the easiest way to do it.
Right. And it's much easier. But the guy in the chute can get beat up pretty good.
He
if they're
does,
not careful, and you can mitigate some of that. The one thing that you got to watch,
and fingers getting caught in things, because, well, everything for us is metal.
Right.
And
mechanical springs, stuff like that.
Yeah, so you really got to watch that.
And like your uncle this year was on the squeeze side of the chute. I was on the head catch and the tail gate. So I'm holding to a rope and then a head catch. So when that guy in the chute brings it in, and I'm dropping that gate, again, metal, there's all kinds of things that can catch.
Yeah.
Or get caught in. And then I hit the head catch as they swing through, and there was a couple of them that almost got through because they were hesitating, and then they would just
jump.
Yep. Big time. And they're big calves, so you catch them a little late. And once they get started, then they can
wiggle out.
And it's hard to beat them. But the guy who's doing the squeezing is pulling hard. Over time, fatigue starts to set in. And I don't care who you are, if you're working out or not, these are specific
muscle groups you don't use very often.
And so you can get fatigued like that. And so when you get tired, you get fatigued, things can happen.
Start missing things. Yeah.
Well,
and you said the guy with the branding iron is key. Like, there's 2 positions in which the guy with the iron will walk: iron up and above heads, or iron down so it hits the dirt. A lot of the times I'll see you walk, because you're taller than a lot of the other people. You'll walk with iron up and above the head so that nobody gets touched.
Right.
But yeah, you're exactly right. I've seen way too many times people, they bump into you, like they get out of your way real quick. They know there's a hot iron somewhere close, and they're like, "Oh, I don't want to touch that."
No.
And especially if you're wrestling, you can, depending where that brand goes, if it's on a hip and you're holding it on the tail, you just have to be the guy on the tail. You're very close to it.
I've gotten hit a couple times.
If it's a rib brand, you're pretty equidistant, but the guy sitting on the head, your knee is still fairly close to that, or can be close to that brand. And depending on the size of the calf, if it's a small calf, a little easier to hold, but it kind
of the brand's right there.
The distance. So those are some of the safety things that
I think one that you forget about, though, because we don't do it anymore. We band our calves, but beforehand it used to be we would castrate with a knife, and there'd typically be 2 guys. They'd have 2 pretty sharp blades, so that it was quick and efficient. And anybody, you got to stay away. They'd hold that knife pretty close, because you don't want to, just like the immunization gun, you don't want to stab or poke anybody with it. So they'd be watching their hands pretty close.
Well, usually what I would do when I was asked to castrate is you've got a solution of usually Lysol and water.
Yeah.
And it's hard to use gloves, even rubber gloves. And so your hands will smell like Lysol for days afterwards,
Yeah.
but
Right.
you keep refreshing that too. But you get to keep your knife good and sharp. And I would drop my knife in the bucket, keep it in the bucket, and only use it when I needed it. I'd wash that scrotum off, get it clean, reach in, and I'd find the knife, and it's laying down there. I know what I'm feeling for, and if I feel a blade, then I move, and you pick it up.
But you gotta be careful.
You cut, and you put it back in the bucket. That's how I normally would try to mitigate anybody getting cut, because it's very easy to turn. And that blade is, I mean, you've got it to a razor sharpness. You need to have it that sharp. So, but yeah,
and then the other thing is moving the cows and calves. It's easy. Just anytime you move them, you can get caught in a bad position, get squeezed or kicked or just pushed. Their head will push your whole body across the corral. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and people that aren't familiar with cows, I mean, you can read a cow and you can say, okay, I'll push her, she's bluffing. Or you get one that is all of a sudden she's honky and they don't know what to look for. That's why you don't want them necessarily in the corral. And a lot of people want to help. They want to be a part of doing the sorting. Now, what you talked about in the intro too was, we sorted these cows out. We actually made 4 sorts yesterday.
I saw that. There was the way the sorts were looking. I was like, that's interesting. I was like, well, the chronological display on the video doesn't make sense, but I knew what you guys were doing, so I was like, I'll just leave it how it is.
Yeah. So what basically we were doing is leaving calves behind, sorting out of the pen. And then we sorted into 3 distinct herds that go to 3 different pastures that then we will move on to summer pasture in a week. So we did 4 sorts, and then you sort the calves off. We did 4 sorts, and it took us,
I don't know, was it an hour?
Less than an hour, maybe 45 minutes.
Yeah.
That's not bad for the amount of animals you've got. That's not bad.
Right. And so your mom's on a gate, I'm on horseback, and your brother's on the other gate at the other end of the alley directing, and then we had to bring that one group back and resort again because we didn't have a third gate person, and it wouldn't work anyway because there's nowhere to place them. So,
and then at the very end, Justin came in and helped with that last sort, I think is how that worked.
Yeah,
because we needed another person just to kind of help push them.
Yeah, it worked,
and it worked out really well.
Which is something people take for granted. They think sometimes sorting more bodies the better, and sometimes it's actually the less bodies the better. You just need minimal manning.
Right,
it tends to help.
The thing that's sometimes the time sink is getting those cows to move up the alley. I can sort, and you might have saw that in some of those, and I'll sort, and your mom will have the gate there, and they're headed out really well. And I'll go and I'll start to grab another couple of cows, a certain, cut them out with particular tag numbers that we're sorting too. And I'll look up, and then they're stalled in the alley because they've seen the guy at the end of the gate. And I'm like, okay, so you just got to instead of trying to bite off another half a bite an apple, go ahead and take the bite you got, take it down there, chew it up, get it done, and come back and take another bite. And you get greedy, and that was me.
And then of course you got 3 or 4 cows coming through, and then you get a calf. Like, no, you can't go that way. Balls up the whole process.
Yeah.
She talked to them like they're little kids in a classroom. It's funny.
Oh yeah, it is funny.
Cute.
So I was directing them, and I was calling them out, and I was saying 64, 68, 48. Come on, girls, do you go this way? They didn't follow my directions.
You're saying they don't know their numbers?
They don't know their numbers.
Yeah.
We need to work on them and their counting numbers a little bit.
One thing that you were talking, well, actually, I guess I spoke about it at the beginning, was it's a team sport. Communicating is pretty important. What are some of the things with communication and like coordination while you're putting things through the calf table and whatnot that others might take for granted?
Well, what we try to do, it's easy to tell whether or not an animal's been branded.
Right. That's the easy part. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Literally look.
What I like to do is make sure we've got a vaccination done.
And what's best on vaccinations is if you have a person for each vaccination that needs to be done.
Yeah. Not swapping guns.
Right.
Not one person doing 2 different vaccinations.
Yeah.
Dedicate someone to it. So what we'll do is we'll vaccinate first on the one side, then put the brand on. And then that way we know when we tip that up, we can't turn it loose till the other vaccination is done, because sometimes you can't tell. The other thing you could do is give somebody a marker in their hand. And a lot of times that's an easy way to do that when they vaccinate, when you wrestle calves. And particularly
Do like
if
the
you
chalk
are
mark.
a chalk mark, and it's difficult sometimes to tell what calf's been branded and what's not when you're horseback looking down on them and they're all crowded in with a bunch of cows. That's a lower stress way to do it, but sometimes takes longer because you're searching for calves. If you have some with a grease marker, a red one and a blue one, or a red one and a green one, whatever you colors you choose, when they vaccinate, they put a mark on top of their back. That
Oh,
that will shorten things up, and then you know that if they got that mark, they have vaccinated and they've marked them, so it's a done deal. And if you're short a mark, you need to talk about, okay, did you vaccinate and forget to mark, or
Right.
did you not vaccinate?
And then
Yeah.
we had a person checking off as it was happening too, that everything was happening.
Yeah, and I always try to do a little branding sheet, again, part of the prep work. Either your mom will put together or I'll put together, and it says, okay, that we want to look at this particular calf for this reason. This one does this. We're going to save this one for a butcher. A number
because
of things.
you're also making calls of the future of the herd too
Right.
simultaneously. You're looking at, which calves are we going to keep for replacement heifers, and which ones we're going to keep for butcher and stuff like that.
Yeah, and particularly that's done in the fall, but there are
You're
some
still looking,
you're
yeah.
still looking, and there are some that you see that are like, oh, that's an outstanding heifer. We're going to want to keep her.
Yeah, so as Braden is branding, no stress here. Make this one pretty. She might stay. It's like,
And he goes, you do realize you're still putting pressure on me? And I go, okay, all right. The next one, and finally I got to one. I said, boy, this is a nice looking heifer. And he goes, I still know what you mean. Because invariably, if you want to put that brand on really nice, it can go on a steer and it'd be messed up a little bit. The steer is going to go for.
Yeah, you don't have to look at that brand for the rest of its life.
Yeah, and then they're 18 to 24 months. They're going to be,
So-
sold across the counter.
so then a little bit later, Braden is talking to Connie and I, and he's like, you know how Dad's always talking about make that brand look good. You want that brand to be perfect. He said after he branded his little heifer, yeah, I get that. I see why you want to make sure your brand looks good. He said,
Oh, you do.
I'm gonna look at that brand on the side of her for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
yeah, that's it.
If you've
Totally
ever done
it.
any building in the inside of a house, you remodeled a room or something, if there's a mistake made,
You know where
it's
it's at.
there. Nobody else sees it, but you know
Uh-huh.
it. It's the same kind of thing. So yeah.
Yep. The other thing I was gonna ask about was stress. So we kind of joke about it a little bit, but what are the stresses of branding day, not only on the animals, but like you guys? It's funny because I was also watching the clips, and there was one clip where you guys were talking back and forth, and I definitely heard some stress in Mom's voice. I was like, oh, something was happening. I don't know what it was, but there was something surrounding that conversation.
This is my life.
It was probably
Help me.
criticism
Somebody
of the gate operator,
please
I'm
help.
sure.
No, it was actually at the calf table. The gate operation is always going to be a stressor, no matter
Oh,
how good of a relationship you have. Father, son, father, daughter, mother, son, mother, daughter, husband, wife. It does not matter. You will
Brother,
get
brother,
angry.
or-
You will want to kill each
Yeah,
other.
brother's the worst.
No, that's a bad
Oh,
one.
brother's definitely the worst. Yeah, no
Yeah.
question, hands down.
Oh,
Hey, and
Um,
then you start saying some 4-letter words at each other. Fix the blanking gate. And like, how about you come do it yourself? And then it gets into like
How can you not
cloud of
see
dust,
that?
flying
it
fish.
degrades from there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that was, unless it was a calf got, I don't know.
I never yelled at her once
No.
in 2 days.
He knows
And
better.
we were working cattle together.
Yeah,
And just the two of us.
he's getting better.
I
I
think
was
he's getting a
cussing,
little bit
though.
more savvy on how to work these cattle is the thing.
Is that it?
At my tutelage, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's got to be it. Yeah. Oh, you heard it here
Oh my
first, folks. Yeah,
God,
that's it.
That cracked me up.
Don't
That's
you
funny.
though? Yeah.
Yeah.
I know a couple times calves came out and they started to go towards the calf, and Brady's like, I got it, Mom. And he's right in front of it and wrestled it back.
It's a
and
good
Oh,
thing he's
And-
big
and then-
and stout.
there was one that he thought had gotten released and shouldn't have been. And he goes screaming by me. And I'm like, what the heck? he was about to tackle it because he thought we needed to brand it. And it was all good. And he starts laughing. He's like, "Oh, good, we're fine."
If you can get your brother to laugh, it's a pretty or
It's a good
even
day.
smile. It's a pretty good deal.
That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
He just pulls a poker face really well,
Yeah.
and he's laughing on the inside, but he just doesn't. He doesn't want to give anybody the satisfaction.
Yeah, it really
Definitely.
upsets me sometimes because I don't know if he's serious or not. And it's been a while since we lived together, so I can't read him like I used to.
There is that.
Oh.
I don't know.
Well,
it's all stressful though. It really is.
I got
stressful.
4 hours of sleep the night before. Dad got 2.
But so I guess why is it the most stressful for you? I can tell you why I would say it, but what makes it as the animal owner and the person who's managing them the most, why does this stress you out so much?
I worry about everything working out and being able to do it because of weather.
Yeah.
Getting people there, you ask them to come
and having enough
and not
help.
waste their time.
Yeah.
And having enough help and not overburden any one person. You want it fun for people too, because really
branding's
is
supposed to be kind
social
of a
event.
fun, like, season ending culmination event.
Hey, I can tell you when I was younger and I was even as a little guy, my stirrups were pretty damn short.
Mhm.
And my grandpa come to me one day and I'd had to wrestle calves. That's all I got to do. And even though I was little, by God, you got in there and you did the best you could.
Yeah.
And sometimes you didn't get the big calves because some of the older boys got those.
You also got judged on it, for sure.
You always get judged on it. Hell yeah, you get judged on it. And I remember my grandpa coming to me one time. Oh my God, I couldn't believe it. And he says, "You need to go get on your blaze horse." I think, okay, they're sending me on a job to do because I'm little and I'm not much help, and so they got some thing that needs to be done. And he goes, "Shake your rope down," because we all got to rope calves when you're riding drag. All these calves are holding back, and so you practice. You got your rope out and you're heeling these calves and you're picking them up if it's a
whether you were supposed to or not.
Well, there is that, but we all got good at heeling calves, even though we were little guys. And I thought, okay. And he says, "Get your rope, shake your rope down, and why don't you get in there and rope a couple calves?" I'm like, "I'm an adult. Oh my God.
I'm a big boy.
I'm a big boy now.
I'm like, really? I mean, I'm just so excited. I couldn't believe it, and you get your gloves on and so that's how it starts. And so, and I roped, I don't know, it couldn't have been more than 6-8 calves. And I'm watching them every time because I know I'm being judged, because I know what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to high hawk them. You want to get a double hawk. I mean, all of these things. And because you've been wrestling and, you're being judged by all these older guys and these kids. And I'm roping, by God, I mean, this is just this proud moment. And I keep watching my grandpa every time I do it because I idolized him. And I look, and pretty soon he goes, "He give me the old." That's good. I'm like, "I got the rope. I thought I did good." I mean, so that those are moments that you'll never forget. And unfortunately, the times have changed a little bit where we don't have big crews like that. And he was working for a guy who had a lot of cattle, so that was at the time it wasn't his cattle. We did have some of his too, but that he got to run on shares. But things like that occur, and it is a moment in time that you can't always get for everybody, but you want that to be fun for them. You don't want to overwork them, and that's part of the other thing too. Do we have enough people to do this job that we can have people do new things too? Because you don't want to just wear somebody out doing the same old thing year after year. It's no fun, and it's like, God, I hate doing that. I don't get to do anything different.
Right.
So there's that part that you want to keep a crew happy, and usually it's family and friends, and your friends are much closer because family's family. And so you talk about the almost near fist fights, because you're just more familiar with each other and you can say things that you wouldn't say to a friend.
Oh yeah. There's definitely been a fight or two in the back of the chute because the calves, over the simplest thing of the calves were not being prepped in the chute well enough, because I thought they needed to go one certain way. He thought they needed to go another certain way. And there were words exchanged and occasionally fists.
Yes.
Yeah.
That happens.
So, and it's a matter of, one of the sins, what's the one when you like to work pushing calves up the chute, what's the one thing that you don't do pushing a calf up the chute?
I mean, personally, I don't like kicking them.
Well, not to the animal. What's a kind of a cardinal sin? The overall arching thing that you should always have done.
I mean, if you're talking about have one ready to go all the time,
There you go.
like that was the one thing that it's always bothered me. If I have somebody that I'm helping and they don't have something in the chute ready to go, it drives me crazy because you're wasting time. It's
There you go.
completely inefficient. Normally if I had my druthers, what I'd have is the whole chute. Every time I got multiple calves in that chute. Why? Because as soon as one's loaded up into the catch, the next one follows right behind it, and then you are able to put one right behind that. Because what also happens is you've got an empty chute, and that calf doesn't want to go up it. It's scared.
True.
So when you have
Yeah.
tail ends in front of it, it goes, oh, there's my buddy, and they'll follow right behind it. It makes things a lot easier. The other thing too is when that happens, you keep that chute filled. As soon as your crowd tub's empty, you can immediately open that up, fill it right back again, and you're right back to where you started. So you don't have to pause the entire operation because what happens is sometimes people do need to pause because they'll have to refill the vaccination gun. But then the other thing too is those irons are hot. You're wasting gas. You got to keep pushing because like other things are happening that depend on you. You are the starting block for all of the operation.
Right.
So if you don't have anything going on, you mess up the whole process.
And you know what? The fuel to me that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I'm the low man on the totem pole. I'm the one starting the process. It's important to me that I don't waste what's going on up front.
But because then all of a sudden you have however many people that are up there with a job
waiting,
not able to do their job. Not that they're not doing it, they're not even able to.
Right. Well, and it also upsets me because people start jawing, and I'm like, hey, I got calves waiting for you guys. Like, why aren't you? Oh, sorry, we didn't see that. I'm like, okay, learner. I'll always keep a calf ready for you.
There you go. Always keep.
That's your type A personality. But like yesterday, Uncle Teal was doing the push, and we needed another person in there helping him, and we didn't have any young guys to be able to help him.
And that is nice too. Is a lot of times if you got two of you
need
working
two,
tandem,
yeah.
If one pushes up and jumps out of the chute and comes around behind, the other can keep pushing right behind him. And you just keep doing a pattern where you're circling. It works really well if you're able to do that.
Yeah. And I know he got pretty tired by the end of the day, and I should have probably jumped in there, but I was trying to keep track of numbers and things in video too.
I don't like. And don't take this the wrong way at all.
You don't like girls in there.
I don't want women in that chute because those calves are a lot stronger than you realize.
Oh, I know.
And
it can be.
And these women are much smaller.
Well,
and I worry that they're going to get hurt.
What's beneficial too is people don't realize it. Being taller than a lot of the people that we've worked with, it's very helpful having long legs because I've been able to get myself out of some serious situations because I almost got crushed a couple of times when I was younger. And being able to reach up with my legs and just stand above their backs kept me from getting underneath hooves.
Right.
Well, it's because it's the same thing as, I mean, it's not a holdover necessarily because of the male female roles. When I was a little guy, women weren't allowed down in the corrals. They didn't handle cattle. They didn't. That's not something women need to see. And so all of the women, my aunts, older women, cousins, mom, grandmas, they were all in the house prepping for the meal. So there was lots of help that way. Now you're trying to do both. You're trying to help and you got my sister to help, which was great, but you just don't want to ask people to do that sort of stuff unless it's already like, then that was the role. That was what was done. And it was only men down there doing that work. And then that shifted as I got into kind of grade school. That started to change. Yeah. And I think part of it was because the crews became less and less,
right?
Maybe some of that. I think we've talked about this.
I think probably social economic issues there.
Yeah, there is, but it worries me. If a boy gets trampled, and I've seen people fall down and get calf. Literally, they're in the chute and a calf backs up right over the top of them. And I mean, they're putting hoof prints all the way up their body and their face. I've seen that happen.
Yeah.
And if it's a boy, it's like, rub some goddamn dirt on it. You're fine. Get up. If it's a girl,
Like,
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Ooh, I mean, I just,
You
and
just
it's
worry.
just,
You
I
think
worry.
you think we're more fragile.
You are more fragile.
Mm.
You're my fragile flower, honey.
The thing is, I have a lot of padding to help me out, so I don't think I'm quite as fragile as he thinks.
Only in the right spots.
But I could put my weight behind him, so that would help.
Yeah.
Those ample hips do help. Those
They
are
do.
nice. Anyhow,
Yeah.
but the stress is there, and stress starts. I'm stressed during calving time.
Yeah.
Every day I wake up and I've went to sleep for a little bit, and I wake
You're
up.
worried those
I'm
cows.
worried that I've lost a calf, that
Yeah.
I should have been out. I mean, you get wore out in the
Worry.
stress and the worry.
Just worry for them.
Now we got done, and everybody was great. I said, no, just leave things where they're at. I'll move the chute later. I'll pull panels. I can do all that stuff. And they're saying like, no, we're here. Let's help. Let's do it. I went, okay, because I would do the same thing at somebody else's place,
Yeah.
And
And it's
they
easier
did.
because then you can, move stuff like the head catch
Well,
or
Yeah.
the table. It's easier to move with more people and just set it to the side and be done with
and
it.
like
Right.
the panels, it takes you 10 minutes for everybody, 2 people, one on each end. You move them, they're done. Where
It'd take me half
otherwise
an
it'd
hour.
take you quite a while. Yeah.
At least. And so then everybody was gone, and we were moving, just dropping the cows out to the different pastures from the corrals. And Braden says, you want to move that calf table? I said, no, I can get it with the tractor, later. Don't worry about it. And he goes, okay. So he's down. I guess he's moving some horses that we had put into different pens, kind of out of the way. All of a sudden, we hear the tractor start up. She decided we're going to move the calf table.
I didn't know they'd had that conversation.
And it was all right. So I was like, he looked at me.
Why
I'm like,
not?
okay, why not? And
Yeah.
she's, yeah, hey, we're good with it.
Because he looked at me and he said, do you want me to do that? And I said, well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so your brother jumps in the tractor, and
Because I mean,
but it's all done. Everything's put away. You got 8-10 irons. You got to let them cool. We got the branding pot. You got propane bottles. I mean, there is a lot of stuff that goes into. We prepped to get it there. You do it now. You got to put everything away. It's just busy work. And then once we were done, and I came back down here from the ranch with your mom yesterday or last night, and it was like we were both exhausted. And I think it's the stress. You're done.
Anticipation, you're done.
It's over.
all of it.
So now
It's also the use of your patience throughout the day as well, because people, whether they try to or not, they test it on a regular basis.
I thought everything went so
everything
well.
went very, very well.
That's good, because I've definitely
really
been to brandings where it wasn't even our place, but there were people that were testing my patience, and I was just like,
Yeah, and there was none of
There
that.
was none of that.
None of it.
We've had some very good crews the
Yeah.
last
And
how
everybody was doing everything they could. I mean,
Yeah.
so
But no, you're right. I have been to some places where there's some obvious friction,
yeah.
and it's high drama all the time, and it's like, okay, you just kind of stay off the back end of that, and
that's why I like to
Yeah.
shoot. I can go hide.
yeah. And there's other places that things run smoothly, like our friends, Watson's. That's pretty dang smooth, done it so many times and good. And if
Yeah.
they've got any drama going on, you don't even know about it, so but there's always those things where you're looking at each other because you're making decisions still at the last minute about, what are we going to do with this steer? What are we going to do with
Right.
that? And then I messed up big time.
Yeah, we did have one moment of drama yesterday. Oh, that might be where you were saying that
Missed the ear tag.
No. It's the cow that we bought, and I keep thinking she's ours, and she's
Oh.
grandma's.
You put the wrong brand on,
Yep.
so you got to
And-
pay her for it.
And so he went out the chute, and I was like, that wasn't supposed to be a hash knife, guys. And Dad looked at me, and I looked at him, and it's like,
Because legally speaking, for those that don't know, he just rustled a calf.
yeah.
So now you gotta make sure it's square, either financially or you swap calves with another
Right.
one and put
Right.
a brand on a different calf.
And so we debated that. We said, do we just swap a calf out
or do we
and
buy
like
it?
buy it? And I said, let's just buy it. And Dad said, well, we could swap it. And then he said, but when we take calves to market, sometimes it is hard to see the brand where we can see the ear tag. And so if we forget which one we swap it with, then we're going to mess that up. So we're going to pay Grandma for her calf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like, dang it. So we had, after that, we had Morgan, she had a list on her hand of who had to have hay hook. And Connie and I were both watching.
Because I
so
definitely
that,
heard in a couple of clips there were yells of, "Yep, this one is," and then yell whatever brand it was. Hey,
Yeah.
hook,
And
or
that's
hash
and
knife.
that's that communication you were asking about,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And you're doing that all the time. Okay, vaccinated? Yep.
Yeah.
I'm done. Or,
But
no,
yeah, so that was the big thing, was we were like, oh, and as soon as he left the chute,
Yeah, it's always right after it's done. You've like,
after it's done,
oh, I know what we did.
you know,
Yeah.
and I don't know what because we bought 2 bred cows or 4 bred cows.
we got 4, 2 were for grandma, 2 were for us. Well, this is the one I really wanted, and he bought her
Oh.
for grandma.
Well, I bought her and I said, well,
And-
let's have her do it because she's a younger cow. And
Yeah,
there were reasons why I was going to put this cow into grandma's herd for more
'cause she's-
longevity
yeah.
for her.
and in my head, that was the one that I really
It's a
wanted.
nicer cow, actually. It really
So,
is.
I keep thinking
So
she's
there's that.
ours, and we have this debate all the time. It's like, she's a hay hook. No, she's a hash. No,
I get her messed up. There's number 80 and number 118.
yeah.
We have 80.
flip them.
Grandma has 118.
80's
And
a
for
twin.
whatever reason, yeah, it's the 8 in there again. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
Anyway,
80 and 82 are freaking frack. I know
Frick
those
and
two.
frack. Yep. I
But
know those.
but you're looking at these cows and you're going, okay, let's give her this really good. And the EPDs were really
Solid. Yeah.
super solid, and phenotype was
She's
great.
really a
She's
nice
really
looking
nice
cow. Yeah.
And we debated at the time, and I went, no, let's have her. If it goes for a decent price, let's have her. She'll buy it, and it did, and so that worked out. But yeah, it would have been nice to have that as a cow for the hash knife, but you know, it is what it is.
Well,
So
Trying to do the right thing.
anyhow, we owe grandma a calf.
Yeah, so I stole a calf. God. Of course, there was
Well-
always when Dad was alive.
He
Oh,
tried
yeah.
to steal.
tried to-
calf.
I
Oh,
know
God,
there
that
was
was-
stealing
he
going
was-
back and forth constantly.
He was doing that on
Can you
purpose.
remember? He'd be like, "Oh no, that's ours," and your dad would be,
No, it's
"The
not.
hell it is! That's got a number on it." And hey, Grandpa, oh no,
Oh.
no, I think it was mistagged.
Yeah, it was a little game he liked to play. I know.
Yeah.
God, it was fun. But anyway,
Well, anyway, that's branding and branding season. We're a little over an hour, so I think we'll probably cut her short, but that's kind of some of the stuff that goes with branding. There's a lot of prep work, there's a lot of communication, and then there's a lot of work on the day of. So
Yeah.
And the stress is now off for that. But now I'm thinking summer pasture, getting them there.
Yep. The
then
next step.
keeping them alive. I mean, it's all stressful.
Gumbo next year.
Oh,
Yeah, I think you should stick with gumbo.
Just
That's
stick
with
gumbo.
that's the traditional meal that you guys have been doing for like the
You know-
last 8 years. So you might as well stick to it.
I think we
Well,
need
we
to.
probably should. It's that in alone is a big prep because you have to start the day before, and it is a big deal when you
And
make
I
that
think-
much
worth
gumbo.
it.
It's good.
And then what we do is one of those 18 quart cookers that I used to use for those football team dinners.
There you go.
Yep.
That would be a good gumbo container.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll do what we always do and thank people how you do that.
Thank you till you're better paid.
There you go.